Go count the mounds before you mow your lawn again this week, because right now, every raised anthill in your lawn is doing two things at once. It's protecting the colony underneath, and it's setting your grass up to get scalped the next time the mower passes over it. You flatten it, you mow across it. You look back and think the problem is finally gone. Then the next morning, fresh soil is sitting in the exact same spot, and now there's another mound near the driveway that wasn't there yesterday. You've probably already tried the two obvious moves. Spray the ants you can see, and it works beautifully for about 20 minutes. Every ant the spray touches dies, and it feels like a win. But the next morning, the hill is active again because you killed workers, not the colony. Or you mow straight over it, the blade scalps the raised mound down to bare dirt, and 2 weeks later, there's a brown dead patch where the green used to be. Here's the part almost nobody explains clearly. One measured cup of the right treatment, matched correctly to the ant you're actually dealing with, can reach the colony that keeps rebuilding that hill. And once the colony stops, the raised, damaged ground it leaves behind can be leveled and repaired into some of the thickest grass in your whole yard. Not because the treatment fed the lawn, because it finally let the lawn breathe again. The mound is only the sign. The colony is the problem, but before that cup touches your lawn, there's one question that decides whether this actually works or just wastes $10 and 2 weeks of your patience. What kind of ant actually built that hill? Identification. What kind of ant built this? Don't kick the mound open to find out. Stand back and watch it first. Some lawn ants are only a nuisance. Others sting fast, especially the moment the mound gets disturbed, and you do not want to learn which kind you have the hard way. Look at the shape. Is it broad and dome-shaped or flatter with small visible entrance holes? Watch the ants themselves. Are they moving along one narrow, disciplined trail, or do they scatter and rush the second the ground near the mound gets touched? Notice where it's built too. Beside pavement, in open turf, under a tree, close to the foundation, or in damp low ground, fire ants, field ants, pavement ants, and citronella ants don't all behave the same way, and they don't all respond to the same treatment the same way either. Take a minute to actually watch the trail before you decide anything. A single tight line of ants moving in one direction usually points to a more organized, established colony. Ants scattering in every direction the moment you get close often means the colony feels threatened, which is exactly the wrong moment to apply a bait, since disturbed ants stop foraging normally. You don't need to identify every harmless mound perfectly, but if the ants sting, swarm aggressively, or you genuinely can't tell what you're looking at, this is exactly the moment to check with your local extension office or a pest professional instead of guessing. Guessing with an aggressive species turns a lawn repair project into a safety problem in your own yard. Whatever species built it, here's why flattening that mound has never actually worked. Not once. Not for anyone who's tried it. The colony under the low. What you can see is not the problem. It's the front door. Underneath that pile of soil is a working system, tunnels, brood chambers, food routes, sometimes more than one queen, and trails that can extend well beyond the mound itself, which is exactly why a second hill sometimes appears nearby right after you disturb the first one. That's why raking the mound flat accomplishes almost nothing. The pile disappears for a day. The colony doesn't. Workers reopen the blocked tunnels and carry fresh soil back up overnight, and by morning the hill has returned, sometimes bigger than before. A surface spray creates the exact same illusion of a win. It kills the ants that happen to be outside in that moment, and for a few hours the ground looks quiet. But those surface ants are often a small fraction of the total colony. If the treatment never actually enters the nest or never gets physically carried inside by the ants themselves, the workers underground just keep replacing whatever you killed on top. Kill the workers you see, and the hill comes back. Reach the colony, and the rebuilding stops. That's the entire difference between everything that hasn't worked for you so far and what actually does. That's exactly why the cup in this video can't hold some random powder from your kitchen cabinet. It has to hold something built specifically to reach what you can't see from the surface. The honest correction, what destroys every anthill, actually. Before I show you what's in the cup, I want to correct something because you've probably already seen a version of this claim somewhere else, and I'd rather be straight with you than let you walk into disappointment. Some videos claim that one treatment, applied once, wipes out an entire colony, queen included, within a week, guaranteed for every ant species, every time. That specific claim hasn't actually been reliably demonstrated, and I'm not going to repeat it here just because it sounds more exciting. What's actually well documented is this. For regular black ants and pavement ants nesting close to the surface, the method I'm about to show you can significantly reduce activity and often collapse the colony entirely within 1 to 2 weeks. That part holds up. But fire ants specifically build deeper, larger colonies, and the research on fire ant control consistently points toward a bait-based approach as the more reliable method for reaching a fire ant queen specifically, not a single surface treatment used alone. If you're fighting fire ants, I'll show you exactly how to adjust the approach later in this video because pretending one method handles every ant identically isn't honesty, it's just a better headline. One, one method isn't a magic bullet for every ant on Earth. It's a tool, and like any tool, it only works when it actually matches the target you're pointing it at. So, before you buy anything, the label in your hand is going to decide more about your success than the method itself does. The reveal. What? The cup contains a measured amount of an EPA-registered granular ant control product labeled specifically for residential turf and for the ant you actually identified. For a lot of regular lawn ants, that product is food-grade diatomaceous earth, a fine powder made from the fossilized remains of microscopic algae. Under a microscope, it doesn't look like powder at all. It looks like broken glass, millions of microscopic shells with edges sharp enough to cut through the thin, waxy coating that covers an ant's body. The coating that keeps its moisture sealed inside. Once that coating is cut, the ant starts losing moisture it can't replace. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily over the course of a day or two until it dries out completely. And here's the part that actually makes it effective past the surface. The ant doesn't die where you applied the powder. It walks back into the colony first, brushing against other workers, sharing food mouth to mouth the way ants do, carrying particles deeper into the nest with every trip it makes. Because the mechanism is physical, not chemical, a colony can't develop resistance to it the way ants can develop resistance to a pesticide over generations. You can't evolve a defense against being cut. This matters more than it sounds like it should, because it's the actual reason this method doesn't lose effectiveness over time the way some chemical treatments eventually do. A spray or bait built around a synthetic active ingredient can face gradual resistance in a colony over repeated generations, the same general pattern seen with plenty of pest and disease control products. A physical cut doesn't have that vulnerability because there's no biological pathway for an insect to act around a sharp edge. For colonies where diatomaceous earth alone isn't enough, particularly fire ants, a labeled bait product works differently and often better because the ants carry the bait itself down to the queen as food, reaching chambers no surface application ever touches. But the cup only means something once you actually know which job the product in your hand was built to do, the label test. Mound treatment, bait, or count. These product types are not interchangeable, and mixing up their jobs is the single fastest way to waste a treatment. A direct mound product is spread over and around an active hill, and some labels tell you to water it in gently. A bait works the opposite way. It has to stay attractive as food long enough for workers to carry it home, which means watering a dry bait too soon can ruin it completely. A broadcast product is designed to cover a measured section of lawn, not get dumped into one hole just because that's where the visible mound happens to be. Ride the label like it's part of the treatment itself, because it is. Confirm the target ant is listed, confirm your lawn type is included, check the mound rate, the watering instructions, and how long people and pets need to stay off the treated area. The cup makes the measurement simple. The label is what makes that measurement actually mean something. Once you know the job, the dose itself is just arithmetic. But get that arithmetic wrong, and you waste the entire application before it ever gets a chance to work. The Exact 1 cups. Here's a real worked example. Suppose the label on a granular mound treatment says to apply half a cup per active mound. That means 1 measured cup treats exactly 2 mounds. Use a measuring cup you dedicate only to this job, mark it clearly, and never let it go back into a kitchen drawer. At the first mound, measure your half cup and distribute it evenly over and around the mound in the pattern the label describes, not dumped straight into one entrance hole unless the label specifically tells you to do that. Repeat the same measured amount at the second mound. If the label calls for watering it in, use a gentle flow so the product moves downward instead of washing away. If it's a dry bait, leave it dry unless the directions say otherwise. Another product might use tablespoons, ounces, or a rate per square foot instead of a cup at all. The half cup example is just that, an example. Your label is the real instruction, too little product, and you likely fail to reach the colony. Too much just increases cost and turf risk without improving your odds. The power was never in the scoop. It's in the correct amount landing exactly where the colony can actually encounter it. Even the correct dose fails completely, though, if you apply it on the wrong day. The rule that rinds most attempts. This is the single most common reason people try this and report it did nothing. Diatomaceous earth only works while it's dry. The moment it gets wet, from rain, from a sprinkler, even from heavy morning dew soaking in, those microscopic sharp edges clump together and lose their ability to cut anything. An ant can walk straight across damp powder and feel absolutely nothing. So the rule is simple. Apply on a dry morning with no rain forecast for at least 24 hours. Don't water it yourself. Let it sit dry and let the ants do the walking through it on their own. If rain shows up anyway before it's had time to work, you're not out of luck. You just reapply once the ground dries out again. It's not that the powder failed. It's that it got interrupted before it ever had the chance to do its job. Get the dose and the timing both right, and here's exactly what you should and shouldn't expect to see happen over the next 2 weeks, day 1 to day 14. During the first 3 days, the mound may still look completely normal. Workers crossing the surface, trails still visible, maybe even a little fresh soil appearing. That is not failure. That's just the powder doing its slow, quiet work below where you can't see it yet. This is exactly the point where people give up too early, kick the mound apart, add more product, or spray the visible workers out of frustration. And any one of those moves can undo the progress that's already happening underground. Somewhere between day 4 and day 7, watch for the trail thinning. Fewer workers making the trip. The path that used to look like a busy highway starts looking more like a footpath. Fresh soil starts appearing more slowly or stops appearing altogether. Between day 7 and day 14, that's when a controlled colony really shows itself. The mound stops rebuilding. The loose surface starts crusting over because nobody's reopening it from below anymore. No new soil shows up even when you compare it against similar weather from a week earlier. Keep mowing in mind during this whole waiting period too. If the mound sits in your usual mower path, it's worth raising the deck or steering for 1 or 2 mowings rather than scalping it again while the treatment is still working. Leveling it early, before you've confirmed the colony is actually gone, just give surviving workers a fresh chance to push soil right back up through the repair you just did, undoing the work before it even had a chance to hold. But quiet for one cold morning or one hot afternoon isn't proof by itself. Here's the actual test that tells you the colony is really done. Verifit proof. The 2-mound comparison. I didn't want to just tell you this works and move on, so here's exactly how to check it yourself, the same way I checked it. Pick the 2 most active mounds in your yard, the ones you notice every single morning because fresh soil keeps showing back up. Photograph both from the same position before you treat anything. Measure how wide each one is, note the label rate you're using, and write down the date. If your label calls for half a cup per mound, that 1 measured cup splits evenly between those 2 hills. Then leave them alone completely. On day 3, don't be surprised if workers are still visible. That's normal, not failure. On day 7, compare the fresh soil against your original photo. By day 14, you're looking for the real answer. Has the mound actually stopped rebuilding, or is it still coming back at roughly the same rate it was before you started? I want to be honest about what this test does and doesn't prove. It doesn't guarantee every mound in every yard behaves identically, colony size, species, and soil all change the timeline. And if you're checking a fire ant mound specifically, and it's still showing real activity by day 14, that's not necessarily the powder failing. It's a sign that fire ants likely need the bait-based two-step approach instead of, or in addition to, diatomaceous earth alone. The proof isn't a pile of dead ants sitting on top of the soil. It's waking up on day 15 and finding out the same hill genuinely did not come back. Once the colony is confirmed gone, the mound itself becomes the next problem, and the fix for that is not what most people expect. Why the grass around ant hills, ghost and ants aren't usually eating your grass directly. Most of the damage comes from the mound itself. Loose excavated soil piles up and buries the grass crowns underneath it, blocking light completely. The tunneling underneath disturbs roots that used to be packed tightly into solid soil, and raised ground dries out faster than level ground around it, so that little hill is under more heat and moisture stress than the rest of your lawn even before a mower ever touches it. Then the mower makes it worse. The deck dips into that raised mound and scalps the grass right down to bare dirt, scattering loose soil across healthy turf nearby and widening the damaged ring a little more with every single pass. The ants build the hill. The mower usually finishes the job, which means the real repair here doesn't start with a bag of fertilizer. It's with leveling ground that's been sitting raised and stressed for weeks. The second payoff, how the grass actually grouse backs. Thicker, I need to correct something here too, because this is exactly where the overclaiming gets worst across a lot of videos on this topic. The ant treatment does not fertilize your lawn. It does not feed the grass directly. If anyone tells you the powder itself is secretly boosting growth, that's not the honest mechanism, and I'd rather give you the real one. Once the colony is confirmed inactive, gently break the mound down and spread the loose soil in a thin layer, thin enough that you're not burying the healthy grass crowns sitting right at the edge of the scar. If there's too much excess soil, remove it instead of smothering more lawn with it. Level the surface flush with the turf around it. If your grass is a bunch-type species like fescue or ryegrass, add matching seed at the repair rate on the package, press it into real soil contact, and keep it consistently damp while it establishes. If your grass spreads through runners, healthy turf at the edges may fill the leveled scar on its own during active growth. The scar closes from the outside in, not the center out. The edges thicken first as the smothering effect finally lifts. Light reaches soil that's been covered for weeks, and the roots that were struggling under that mound suddenly have room and air again. The product controls the colony. The repair is what actually gives the grass its ground back. But that repair looks genuinely different depending on what kind of grass you're actually growing. Cool season versus warm season. Repair if you're growing a cool season bunch grass, tall fescue, perennial ryegrass, or Kentucky bluegrass. That scar is usually a true bare spot that needs actual seed to close, since these grasses don't spread aggressively through runners on their own. Warm season lawns behave differently. Bermuda can spread into a leveled scar fairly aggressively during its active summer growth. Zoysia fills in more slowly. St. Augustine is generally repaired with plugs or sod rather than ordinary seed, since it doesn't establish reliably from seed at all in most cases. And none of these warm season grasses are going to fill anything in while they're dormant. So timing your repair to the grass's actual growing season matters, as much as the repair method itself. Get the colony gone and the scar repaired properly, and there's still one more mound somewhere in your yard waiting to prove whether any of this actually holds up long term. Why ant hills keep returning plus the two-step system. A brand new mound showing up somewhere else doesn't automatically mean your treatment failed. Nearby colonies you never treated can still be active. Winged ants can establish entirely new nests during their mating flights. A colony that felt disturbed can sometimes relocate a short distance and rebuild. And thin, dry, open soil anywhere in your yard remains an easy target for a new colony looking for a place to settle. So, here's how to think about this as a system instead of a one-time fix. If your lawn has one or two confirmed active mounds, a labeled direct mound treatment applied and measured correctly is usually enough. If active mounds are showing up across the whole yard, a registered broadcast bait spread across the lawn reaches the foraging area far more efficiently than carrying a measuring cup from hill to hill, and after it's had time to work, any remaining stubborn mounds can be spot treated directly. Don't mix products together in the same container, and don't overlap different treatments unless both labels specifically allow it. Once the colony pressure across the yard has actually dropped, keep monitoring the same borders where new activity tends to show up first: fence lines, pavement edges, and anywhere soil stays consistently dry and open. One mound needs a treatment. A yard full of mounds needs a system. And the real cost of mixing those two jobs up isn't really the price of the product itself. It's how many times you end up buying more of it because the first round was never actually built to handle the scale of what you were facing. Cost comparison. A bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth or a labeled granular treatment typically runs somewhere in the range of $4 to $8, and one bag will usually handle every mound in an average yard for an entire season, plus a perimeter application if you want to prevent new ones from establishing in the first place. Compare that against a single professional ant treatment visit, which commonly runs anywhere from $100 to $250 depending on your area and how many mounds need attention, often with a required waiting period before pets and kids can use the lawn again. Scale that out across a season, and it gets even wider. A homeowner running quarterly professional visits for ongoing ant pressure can realistically spend several $100s a year on a problem that a single $8 bag, applied correctly and repeated as needed, often handles for a fraction of the cost. That's not a claim that professional treatment is a scam. Sometimes it's genuinely the right call, especially for a severe fire ant infestation or when identification is uncertain. But for the ordinary mound sitting beside your driveway, the gap between an $8 bag and a $200 visit is real, and it's worth knowing before you reach for your phone instead of your garage. Ending. Stop flattening the hill. So, here's the whole title, answered honestly instead of oversold. One cup was never a universal miracle measurement. It's a label-directed amount of a real, registered treatment divided according to whatever rate your specific product actually calls for. Destroying every ant hill in your lawn means correctly identifying and treating every confirmed active mound you're dealing with using the method that actually matches that species, not a single claim that one product instantly wipes out any colony on contact, regardless of what kind of ant built it. And grass growing back thicker was never about the pesticide feeding your lawn. It's about the colony. Finally leaving the soil alone long enough for you to level the scar, repair it properly, and let the grass reclaim ground it never should have lost in the first place. That's the difference between chasing a mound around your yard every week for years and actually solving the thing underneath it once. Go count the mounds in your yard right now. Don't disturb them yet. Watch them long enough to get a real sense of what kind of ant you're dealing with. Read the label on whatever product you're considering and measure exactly instead of guessing. Tell me in the comments how many active mounds you're looking at right now and what kind of ant you think you're dealing with: regular black ants, fire ants, or something you genuinely can't identify. I read every comment, and the pattern in your answers tells me exactly what to cover next.